Okay, we'll bring tonight's city council work meeting to order. Is there a motion on tonight's agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Number 3, Ice Arena logo. Jack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city approved the painting of the interior walls of the ice arena at their May 23rd, 2022 council meeting. That approval included saving the existing logos on the west wall in the rink arena. We were notified by the St. Francis Youth Hockey Association also on May 23rd that their board endorses and recommends the removal of the old logos and replacement by a new logo per ISD 15 branding standards. Those standards are included in a link in your packet. To remain consistent with the St. Francis ISD 15 branding requirements, the St. Francis Youth Hockey Association is recommending that the rink interior be painted white and navy blue with gray accents. Following these branding guidelines, the St. Francis Youth Hockey Association is proposing that the existing mural on the west wall area is retired as a District 15 logo and be replaced with the logo exhibit in attachment 2 of your packet. To commemorate the old logos and the history of the building, the St. Francis Youth Hockey Association will create a historical piece that will be featured in the lobby. Alex Goodwin of the St. Francis Youth Hockey Association is in attendance tonight. Logo change and a request for ice time donation for a fundraiser scheduled for September 16th, 18th through 18th, 2022. So currently in the arena, this is what we have. Alex, you just want to go to the podium? Absolutely. And this is the proposed logo. I think there'll be banners that will be hung on either side of this, so.
Yes, that is correct. So as you all know, we're in the beginning process of some really awesome improvements in the arena. We have been in contact with the high school, who is on board with whichever decision that we make. We took a vote as a youth hockey association, and it was voted that it would be okay to cover the logos. The high school did have a recommendation that I reach out to the ISD 15 athletic director to get his take on the logo and branding. He informed me, Brian Juleson, he informed me that this situation has come up multiple times in various buildings. The recommendation is to cover the logo and replace with current St. Francis District branding, as we're going to update the arena with current ISD 15 branding and colors. They also offered to cover the cost to have the logos painted, which is a nice added bonus, of course. And so, I mean, just from overall, the logo that's up there, or the mural, I should say, it's great. It's outdated. We've gotten feedback from parents, visitors, just that it's time for some fresh take on the arena. We do have plans to take some of the pieces in the lobby and make a more historical piece. There's some information on a previous high school student who went off to do some great things after college, and then there's some information on the families that donated the land, and then incorporating with something along the lines of this to commemorate the history and talk a little bit about the story and share information about the lady who painted this mural. From what I've heard from the parents that were there and witnessed this mural being painted, it's very important to them and they're passionate about it. They would be sad to see it go. However, we do still want to make sure we keep that live and going, and that it doesn't disappear when we cover it up and make some new fresh changes in the arena. Anything I missed, Jack?
I think that pretty well covers the logo. We just wanted to get city council's endorsement and approval on board with this. I think that there's a good case. We all understand the passion and the sentiment attached to the old logo. However, all that information has been retired by the school district, and this is their current logos that they use for all their activities. So we're just looking for your direction on what to do with the logo.
My feeling is the old stuff there was there's a lot of stuff on the wall. This kind of cleans it up and it just looks better.
Agreed.
Yeah, I've got no problems. I think it looks great.
Yeah, in my personal opinion, I'd be sad to see him go because attending St. Francis myself, these were our icons. These were what I grew up with, and it's kind of hard to make that decision.
Yeah, but it's almost like you have to update and it's not the new branding that the school's using, and
Yeah,
you need to have what the school's using, the colors right and
yeah,
everything
I
else.
understand
Yeah.
all
You're
that.
just
It's-
sad.
I am.
Nostalgia.
And I think, I mean, the two users of the facility want this change to be updated.
Mhm.
And we'll, of course, accent with some banners for our co-ops to make sure that they're represented up there as well.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
that's
the
always-
idea you're gonna somehow preserve it or document
Yes.
memorial is, that's
Absolutely.
good.
Yeah, and
That's
tell the
important.
story, tell the
Yep.
story.
And I appreciate that you're taking everybody's side and incorporating it into the
Absolutely.
new
I don't
look.
want to step on anybody's toes. I want to make sure all my bases are covered before we do anything.
Very good. So does Jackals will be in next council agenda then?
We'll put it on the 13th for official approval.
Okay. Yeah, we can't approve
Yeah.
anything here tonight, so.
Gotcha. Nope, that makes sense.
Anything else on this?
I think you were going to address the issue of the fundraiser in the fall.
Yeah, so the last fundraiser that we had, as you all know, was a big success. We had way more people in attendance than we could have ever even imagined. We had to take a few steps back and just kind of look around and take it all in because it was incredible. And so we got a really strong push from the community, from our parents, those that played in the tournament, that they want to do it again and do it more so on a bigger scale. As you know, we pushed that last one through really, really quick in the beginning of the year so we could kind of get a head start to raise some dollars. And ideally, we would like to do this annually in the fall. So we're thinking on doing this again as the first weekend once the ice is put in, another fundraiser to kick off the season and also combine it with some of our other youth activities. So we always do an equipment swap where we have a big trailer out front, and if families want to donate extra equipment, they can. If families need something, they can take it off the trailer, which is really nice. Have an open skate again, which was packed when we had that last time. Maybe the potential to even grab a few new recruits to hockey coming up, because there were individuals and families there that none of us had ever seen before. So we had a really good attendance. And so Jack and I were just talking about the possibility of, donating ice time again, or if that's not the case, I mean, we can always purchase ice too. But this one would be more of a fundraiser for our association versus towards arena improvements, is the feedback that I've received from our association.
And this at the first of the year would probably be less expensive to the city on the donation side because that would be the time we would originally probably have to put the ice in, the middle of September. The last fundraiser, we kept the facility open a week longer for this fundraising event. So that would coincide with the electrical and utility costs that we're already going to incur anyway.
Okay.
We can put that on the agenda too for the request for the fundraiser donation for the
Okay.
next.
Do we have the date? Do you know what date?
Yes, September 16th, that weekend,
16th.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
All right.
Cool.
Anything else on this, Jack?
That's it.
Thank you all.
All right, thanks, Alex.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex.
Okay, next on the agenda, number 4, telecommuting discussion and policy consideration.
The city developed work-from-home assignments in response to Governor Walz's COVID mandate in March 2020. It strongly encouraged working remotely. The general policy was designed to separate and isolate employees to the extent possible for the safety of city staff and to ensure the continuity of city services. At this schedule's peak in May of 2020, there were 5 city staff working from home and 5 staff in the office. As the pandemic crisis has diminished, there has been a callback of staff that were working remotely to their regular office hours. The exceptions to total in-person staffing at the office are 1 position that is particularly suited for working at home, and 1 day work from home per week for 2 staff, and limited work from home requests for quarantines, personal health consideration, or other matters as approved by the city administrator. All staff will return to in-person Monday through Friday, 8 to 4 working hours on Monday, June 13th, 22. There will still be times when there may be a need for certain staff to work remotely. To address these situations, council should consider adopting a policy for working at home. The policy should be general in nature to allow some flexibility in determining those situations that would qualify for the approval. While it may seem unfair that some jobs are not suited for working at home, the ability to work remotely is not a formal or universal staff benefit, but an alternative method of meeting the needs of the city. Remote work is not an entitlement, not a benefit, and is not designed to replace appropriate child care or to accommodate other personal needs. All remote relationship would be at the direction of the city, could be terminated any time for any or no reason, in no way change the terms and conditions of employment with the city of East Bethel. Not all City of East Bethel positions are suited for work-at-home considerations. Due to the nature of their job responsibilities, public-facing City Hall staff, emergency service, and public work jobs are operationally not feasible for remote work. For City Hall staff, these jobs include the building official, building inspector, building department administrative assistant, the receptionist, and in most cases, the city administrator. As a policy consideration, conditions for eligible limited work-at-home situations could include, but not be limited to the following: medical quarantines, certain medical conditions that would not prevent staff from working at home, short-term emergencies or appointments that may prolong the time it takes to return to work, inclement weather conditions that prolong the commute to and from work, focus days when a staff member requests time to work remotely to be able to focus on and dedicate time to a specific project or piece of work, and or other situations that require a work-at-home arrangement as determined and documented by the city administrator. Other policy options that may be necessary to approve temporary or as-needed remote work approval could include but not be limited to: the employee would need to have a home office and a computer is required. There would need to be a signed agreement acknowledging the legal and physical requirements for the remote work, and staff members working remotely would be available at all times by phone, email, and or text, and would arrange their schedules to participate for all virtual meetings and conference calls. As a request for an approvals process, staff members who need to work remotely on a temporary basis should submit a request in writing to their department manager. The decision is at the direction of the manager and approved by the city administrator. The decision to allow a staff member to work remotely is solely at the discretion of the city with approvals as noted above. Managers will periodically review the decision to ensure that the setup works for the staff member and the city. At any point, the city can withdraw a remote work permission for business or performance concern that requires staff members to return to office. Any and all permanent schedule work from home arrangements would have to be approved by city council. Staff members working remotely would log in and log off by email as a monitoring means to ensure their time at the job. Daily log off would also include a brief report of activities completed in the call log for that date. Council is requested to discuss the work at home schedule that is currently in place for city staff. As part of this conversation, it is recommended that council consider a revised policy for working remotely to update the approved plan that was instituted at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. So I've just put a general outline there. I think if we want to go this route, we need to make this flexible, but again, there would be no set schedules approved. Those would only be approved by city council, and work at home would have to meet some of the requirements listed here as the work at home conditions.
Thoughts?
I disagree with medical conditions and short-term emergencies and appointments. That's what sick leave is for, in my opinion. And because I can see them getting all this work from home and then turning around and selling all this sick leave back. And I don't think that's right. I think that's why we give them sick leave. Otherwise, let's not have any sick leave.
I'll give you an example on the short-term appointments. Let's say we have a staff member that's called home or has to go home for an emergency at 12 o'clock, and it takes them to 2 o'clock to do it. they have something that needs to be done the next day, they can log in and work from home for another couple hours. They still have to take the sick leave for the time they were off. But just the fact coming back to work and going back home is gonna cut down on the time that they have. This would be something that's gonna be very rare and not used that often. I think it's a condition that you would have to trust us to administer or approve. Or let's say you have a staff member that had a certain medical condition that wasn't contagious or didn't, this is another rare example too, that didn't limit them to do their work. They felt good, but they had to be at home for a certain medical reason. And this would allow them to do that and meet their work schedules. We're a small staff, and anytime we lose people and don't have this flexibility sometimes, it puts a real burden on us getting things done to meet deadlines.
I think for the most part, I agree with Suzanne, although there are exceptions, you know, it's, I mean, there was a time where I was laid up where I couldn't move around, but I could still sit at a desk and work, you know, but it wasn't I couldn't get in a car or anything, so, but I could still be productive, so there's exceptions, so, but that's kind of the short term.
Yeah,
That was
that's-
like 2 weeks, you know, so.
Yeah, it won't be, I have a cold, I'm gonna work
Yeah.
from home today.
And that was part of why,
Yeah.
why I was looking at this is I'm sure after COVID, what we bought back or what we paid out in unused sick time, and unused vacation time, and unused everything, you know, it was a chunk. And I agree with Suzanne on that. There are extraordinary circumstances, but I think that's what it needs to be used for. You know, and there are times that projects have to be done and you just can't get it done here, so you go home. But my question is, if I'm reading this correct, they are using their home computer and logging into our server, is that correct?
Correct.
How stringent are our protections for our data using everybody's at-home computers that we don't know what
Hacking.
antivirus they have, we don't know what, anything they have. I know what we have on our
Yeah.
server, but we also know that that doesn't protect outside of that.
Well, that's a weakness to the system we currently have. The other option would be that they have another laptop that they take home. Most people here have laptops that are on docking stations, but if you take your laptop home, then you have nothing to your docking station to tie into. So that'd be something we'd have to take a look at.
Yeah, because that's, I think, my biggest concern in the world we live in right now. And we really don't have an IT staff to oversee what everybody is doing. And what's out there, we probably wouldn't find until it's too late.
Yeah. All we need is some ransomware that locks up everything.
And it could happen very easily. I'm not
Yeah,
saying, you know, on a home computer.
You wouldn't be the
It-
first.
And
No.
and it has happened to other businesses
Yeah, it's
that,
happened to a lot of,
And
that
governments.
has,
yeah, governments.
they have the IT departments.
Because if you're logging in on your home computer and you're logging into our server, you still have an open line to the outside, because the protection is not on whatever you're,
Right.
Jack,
so.
in terms of office staff, are they using laptops or are they using desktop computers?
I don't know if anybody's using a PC with a standard tower. They're all laptops as far as I
So
know.
everyone's using laptops? So they should have secure connections to that computer. And,
If they take the laptop home.
right, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
All-
if they
that's all-
take the
That's all
laptop
they need to do
home.
is take a laptop home, because the laptop will have that security.
Or we have an additional laptop that is for
Well,
nothing else but remote work.
I don't think that's, again, it's gonna be so infrequent, and it'll be for a set amount of time,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
I don't think we need to buy additional.
Well, aren't we upgrading and then we'll have some extras?
We will have some extras, all the new computers, we've got one or two that have come in. I'm assuming the rest of them should be in by the end of July.
So, I mean, as long as they're secure,
Yep.
it doesn't matter if they're here,
Yeah.
if they're outside or.
Well,
at
as
home.
long as
Yeah.
they're secure, but
Yeah.
we don't know that about home systems, so.
No, it has nothing to do with the system, it's the computer. If they take the laptop home, it'll have the same
Exactly.
security to where you
But if
use
they're
it.
using their own home computer and logging onto our server,
No, that's what I'm
what they're
saying,
opening,
you can't do that, there's no way they can even do that.
which is what we're currently doing.
You can, from your home computer, you can log into our server?
We've always had that
That's what we're doing,
capabilities.
that's why I have a concern.
But it's very,
Yeah.
yeah, we can, but it's very secure. I mean, when I had
Yeah.
to set mine up during COVID, it was a process.
Yeah, there's a setup process, there is security built into that. Because each one had to have their own special setup before they could log into the server.
All right, okay, so, I understand that. So that's just one issue, you gotta make sure it's covered, so.
And I saw in the paperwork that was here, there was a computer document here on taking care of computers and
Yes.
so, just something else to bring up. Other than that, I don't have any issues. Is everybody,
My exception, my only exception is, I mean, to me, this is a policy for our office manager, for Jack to administer. And I don't see the need for approval to have to come to city council.
Well, what I'm saying is, if there was a schedule, people working at home certain days, what we're listing here is things that come up that are not scheduled. So if there was a need that came up, let's say medical quarantine, let's say that Stephanie was quarantined for COVID and had to stay home for 5 days.
Okay,
She's not sick.
all right,
We still have work that needs to be done. She's perfectly capable of doing it from home. Then this would be something we'd do. But if we went back to a schedule like we did, where we had one person working from home essentially full-time, or we wanted to set up a schedule for one person working from home 4 days a week, then I would want that to be approved by city council.
but again, I don't see how our input on it is important, because it's an employee management thing. It's a staff management. This table's not here to micromanage our city staff. If we had a staff of 100,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be asking us to do that. I mean,
No.
if we had we'd be doing it every meeting then. So, to
you're
me,
just looking, you want input if we're gonna say that employee X is gonna be gone and working from home for the rest of it, you want input on whether that's, if anybody has any thoughts on it.
Well, either that, or I could just inform the council on what the schedule was, and then if we had any objections, we could discuss it.
I'm just saying it's not our job.
No,
And we're going way over our line by trying to manage individual employees and their schedules and everything else, so.
but if we have an employee who's going to work full-time from home,
Yes?
would that be something you would wanna know?
How does it affect what we do?
That's my question, would it affect what we do?
That's my point.
I think,
We're outside our lines.
Yeah.
I kind of possibly think that point was brought up to have come from council, because council originally brought it up that we don't want employees working from home. That could be
But that's
why.
a discussion of whether to have the policy or not to decide whether
Well,
employee A or
the-
employee B gets to
Yeah,
do it.
yeah, I know, but this is how we got to the step of coming to a policy. That was the complaint that was made, that people aren't in city hall.
Well, I understand.
So that's where I'm saying,
But
I
that's why,
think,
so we're here to say overall how we think that should be managed. Whether we have a policy or not.
Mhm.
Once that policy is set, I don't believe it's city council's role to administer that policy. That's our city staff and city administrator.
Mhm.
That's how they manage their staff. We already, if we say we approve this, we already approved the fact that people will be able to work at home for a certain amount of times at staff's discretion. That's what, at least that's what I read into this, is city administrator's discretion. I don't think it, we already approved the fact that people can work at home.
Yeah. I'm just leading to the point of possibly why that is in, that statement was in there to have stuff brought before council. Trying to give background.
We're involved because we're getting complaints from residents that they can't get anything done, or weren't being able to get anything done, and people weren't answering the phone, that kind of thing. That's why it's brought up to us, because we are responsible for what the city does to the residents.
I understand all that. And I have no problem with it, and that's why we're discussing it. All I'm saying is, my point is, once the policy is set, and the policy says it's at city administrator's discretion, why is it political to approve it then? Because that's what it's gonna be. Because you know, it's, you can't administer a policy fairly if a city council is gonna decide who gets to do what. That's, to me, that's micromanagement to the nth degree, and that's not what we're here for, so.
Yeah.
But I understand how it got here, I understand the concerns, I've heard them too. And I know staff are finding ways to address that, but either we have a policy or not, and we don't sit and micromanage every other policy we have. Those are staff level, so.
No, I have no problem leaving it at staff level as a manager or administrator
I don't either.
decision.
Any other aspects of the policy you want to discuss? Jack, is there anything else in particular?
No, and I think if we can leave it somewhat simple and somewhat flexible, it's better and it'll be a much easier document to use. I'll incorporate these ideas into a policy recommendation.
Yeah.
And we'll have it then for the June 27th staff meeting for approval.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Moving on, Laserfish document management.
As part of the 2022 Planning Department budget, $10,000 was set aside for scanning services. This service is to scan all our planning, building, plats, and address files. At this point, the file room is at capacity for hard copy document storage. Staff is now storing files in individual cubicles and offices. So once the files are scanned, all planning and building information will be available through the server, through Laserfish, and linked to the GIS system for easy access. This will mainstream our work, increase access to all public documents, and free up storage space within City Hall. On average, the whole scanning process takes about 3 years. Sherry Eisenbrand, she's our new building permit tech, will be taking a lead role in the project for the city. She has experience with the scanning process and has played an integral part of the process for Arden Hills and Mendota Heights. Both cities contract with Metro INET, and we have been working closely with them to ensure the scanning is done correctly so all documents can be easily transferred to Laserfish. With this, I spoke with Metro INET today. I'm working with Matt over there to get some numbers on what Laserfish would be costing a city, and it's actually a lot cheaper than I thought it would be. So hosting Laserfish would be about $3,100 per year, and then license fees for the individuals that would be in charge of this, you know, in the city, of being able to scan the documents, go in there and manipulate the documents, whatever they need to do. So, for instance, in my department in community development, I'd want 2 licenses, one for Sherry, so she can scan building permits and such as they come in and just put them right into Laserfish. And then also the zoning administrator, city planner position too, so as planning documents are coming in, they can also have the ability just to scan those and put those on Laserfiche as well. To date, staff, we haven't contracted with a scanning company. Eventually, the city will contract with a company to scan the files, but again, in the meantime, staff's begun the first step of preparing for the scanning services. We've been we've talked to a couple scanning services, and we figured out what the pricing would be for them to create our address files and do some organization. We found out that it would be a lot cheaper staff level for us to do that. That's where the big money comes in, is when they're starting to create these files for us. Their scanning is pretty quick and it's not very costly to do that. So in-house, we've been doing that to save money with this project. Again, it's saving us significant fees. But once we've created all the address files, and I think we're very close to creating all of them, I will again begin the process of talking to some of the scanning companies. Metro INET gave me a couple more companies that they've worked with closely, so I'll be contacting them too for moving forward. But for right now, to continue moving forward on this whole process of scanning our documents, I am suggesting that we purchase a desktop scanner for Sherry's desk. This particular scanner is highly recommended by Metro INET, and it's also the scanner she used in Arden Hills and Mendota Heights. It is a color scanner. It's capable of scanning 11 by 17s, which most of our plan sets are 11 by 17s and their color. So we do need to have that 11 by 17 capability. And then it also has the feeder capacity of 100 sheets, so she can do a lot of scanning at once. Again, this desktop scanner will allow Sherry to scan papers immediately as they're submitted. And during the quieter times, she can also help with scanning the existing paper address files while remaining seated at her desk and still helping out customers and such. The price of this scanner is $3,000, and again, it's a desktop. And what I would like to do is take $3,000 out of that $10,000 scanning budget for that scanner, and then different than what I wrote in the report, because I talked to Matt at Metro INET today. Moving forward, I'd also like to be able to take the remaining of that, some of that money, that $7,000 that's remaining, and get Metro INET up and running to have them host our Laserfiche. So as we're scanning, it automatically is going to be going into Laserfiche, and then that would also pay for our licensed users for this year. So it seems like them hosting the Laserfiche will be about $3,000 a year moving forward with it. And this is a product that it's just not for community development department, the fire department, I know we'll be using it. Public Works will, or engineering. Again, we're just trying to save room and get everything in one area like this so it's easy accessible. And as part of our GIS system right now, you can go in there and click on a map on an address, and you can pull up all the tax information and the zoning and all of that. And what we're going to end up doing is linking these address files to that property as well. So easy access, we just click on that link and we can get every scanned document from every department at City Hall is available right there for us, rather than having them located in different departments. So I'm just suggesting City Council discuss it and provide direction with what I'm suggesting to use that $10,000 for this year's budget. And I should have about $2,000 remaining, $3,000 after we go forward with the Laserfiche and the licensing and buying the scanner. We will, as you remember, a part of the COVID money, we did buy the large scanner, and we still have that, and we will still be using that, but we had to get that larger one for the big plan sets that we have for the plat files and for engineering. We're just not at that point right now where we're scanning that stuff.
So assume the scanner would be located at her desk or
Right at her desk, yep.
Right at her desk. So, do we have an office intern this summer? I don't
We
think-
do, doing
we do.
code enforcement.
Is
and
this
planning.
something an office intern can be involved in too?
We are gonna We have discussed that actually today. We started discussing that possibly having him too. Before Erin McDermott turned in her resignation, she was going to be part of the process too, and just using our big scanner out there and being able to scan the documents to herself and then just put them in the Laserfiche files. So we're hoping that's what we'll be able to do with that position as well.
From experience, we went through, when I was working, we went through this 10 years ago with Laserfiche. And same problem, we ran out of file space, so that's what we did. And we attempted to do it with the same process, taking a person, a receptionist at the desk, she would scan what she can. And it's very slow. It'll be a lot slower than you think it'll go. And we ended up hiring a summer intern student just to do it, so they could focus on. Because that's the other thing is focusing on what you're doing to making sure you don't lose track of what you're scanning too, and phones ring, everything else. So that's just my concern. I mean, I definitely, this is something we definitely should do. I can't believe we still got paper files. You know?
Oh, I know. Well, I'm figuring for 2023, I'm still gonna keep the scanning service fee in there, proposing it, because that way, if we get a scanning service, they can take a lot of those old files, and as a way I've talked to them before, they scan those so quickly. And
I suspect, if this is how we'll start, we'll end up using the scanning service, because we'll see just how inefficient
Right.
it is. And,
oh yeah, we won't be moving.
and the other concern too is how much is it taken away from her position and what she's doing? And it's filler, and I understand you're just putting in 100 sheets of paper, whatever, however you're gonna do it, but even that takes a little bit of time,
Yeah.
so.
Well, how she's done it in the past in the other cities, and this is why we were thinking of this desktop scanner too, because in the other cities, when she took in paperwork, she would immediately scan it, and as it's scanning, she's printing off the permit, and then it's already all
Oh,
advanced.
definitely, in
Yes.
terms of real-time stuff,
Yeah,
I'm
so-
just thinking all the archives.
Oh, that is gonna be,
That's gonna take a lot of time, because not only that, you gotta go to the archives, you gotta know what you're doing, and what we learned the hard way, because we were actually one of the first ones to use Laserfiche ever. So, I mean, this was like 17 years ago, I don't know what it was. But is making sure you know what you're scanning, how you're gonna categorize, and where you're sorting it and everything. So it's just not throwing this, I just wanna say, it's
It's
just
a
not throwing
lot.
the scanner. It takes some organization to do it too.
Yeah,
So.
it's not a one-year project. It'll have to carry over at least for probably 2 more years to get everything scanned in. But if we don't start this now, we're out of storage space.
I kinda chuckle as I swear we had the same discussion like 5 years ago.
This discussion started 15 years ago.
yeah, when I was
15,
here
okay, I know
before.
we've had this discussion a few times.
It started when Tammy Shuda was here.
Yeah. See, I remember having that same
Yeah.
discussion with Laserfiche,
Yeah.
as we were using Laserfiche
Yeah.
at the time, so. Anyhow,
I have a question. Have you checked other companies? Is Metro INET the only one that does this?
That's who we use right now for our computers. I'm not very computer savvy, so they host our computers,
They're
internet.
our whole database information system. They do our computers, our phones, everything.
they're our
So
IT.
This integrates everything into one package, so it makes it much
Okay, that
simpler
makes
to get.
sense. Okay.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I didn't know that they did Laserfiche, hosted Laserfiche until about a month ago. So I was out looking at other services, and they were astronomical, the cost.
That-
Well,
No,
it
I'm-
helps that they
I'm
do
glad.
everything.
Mhm.
It's like a,
Yeah, and they
Stop
work
shop.
with these scanning services too. There's a few scanning service that they work very closely with, that they've given me the information as well.
and it's kind of nice to have one contact instead of, okay, my documents are over here and stored
Yeah.
over here, and it's.
Right.
okay, anything else on this? Got your feedback?
I did, thank you.
All right. On to number 6, electrical inspection fee schedule.
Prior to July 20th, 2011, all electrical inspections in the city were through the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry. A change in regulations relating to electrical inspections allowed East Bethel the option of contracting with an independent inspector or the Department of Labor and Industry for this service. Contracting with the Department of Labor and Industry eliminated the city's receipt of any proportion of fees for these permits and potentially delayed the response time for these inspections. In 2011, the city approved the process for contracting with an independent inspector for electrical service. The independent contractual option allowed the city to recover a percentage of the scheduled fees for these permits, work with a local inspector that could provide essentially same-day inspections and assure continuity of inspections for this service. Brian Nelson was the city's first electrical inspector and served in this capacity from 2011 to 2018. The city of East Bethel has contracted electrical inspections to Sloth Inspections, located in Andover, Minnesota, since September 2018. Andy Sloth handles the inspections for East Bethel, Andover, Anoka, Brooklyn Park, Ham Lake, Osseo, and Ramsey. Other cities that contract with this firm are Arden Hills, Champlin, Little Canada, Maplewood, New Brighton, Hugo, Centerville, North Oaks, and White Bear Lake. Mr. Sloth is proposing an increase in the city fee schedule and the percentage of compensation he can collect for his service. Mr. Sloth has not increased his fees in the 4 years he has served as a city electrical inspector. Mr. Sloth's other municipal clients have adopted this schedule or schedules with higher rates. The current fee schedule for electrical permits is exhibited in Attachment 1. Mr. Sloth receives 75% of these amounts and the city retains the balance. The proposed fee schedule change and increase in compensation to 80% of the fees for Sloth inspection is exhibited in Attachment 2. Attachment 3 is a comparison of current fees relative to the proposed changes. Costs for electrical inspections are covered entirely by fees for permits. Mr. Sloth is requesting that the fee increase is exhibited in Attachment 2 and 80% compensation of this amount for his service. Mr. Sloth would be acceptable to retaining the current 75% compensation rate, but request additional increase in the fee schedule if the city is opposed to changing the payment rate percentage. Staff requests council discuss the fee increase and provide directions to staff as their preference for the fees for continuation of Mr. Sloth as the electrical inspector.
I looked at this and I think these fee increases are really small and I think it goes probably less than inflation, so I don't
Yeah.
really have a problem with it. My only question is, wouldn't we need to do like a request for a proposal, a bid for?
RFP.
RFP, yeah, that's what I was trying to come up with.
We could do that, but currently, based on this year's billings and projected fees for electrical inspection, Mr. Sloth will do about $30,000 worth of work, of which he would retain $24,000. This is at the 80% rate. The city would retain $6,000. We've had very good service from him, and to my knowledge, I don't think we've had but maybe one complaint, and that was over an appointment schedule. I think it would be, we're getting very good service from him, and he's used by a number of cities with his firm. And I think that it would be very hard to replace the quality of service we're getting and the price.
So we're not required to get an RFP? Okay,
No.
I think that's
We
what,
never are.
Yeah.
that's what you're, oh, we never are.
Not for
No,
professional
no.
services, no.
Okay.
I didn't know, I thought maybe, I just had to ask.
And, there'd be a possibility you get somebody to do it cheaper, but, we've got good service now, and I think it's at a very reasonable rate, and, I'd like to retain Mr. Sloth. He's been very good to work with, and very timely on his inspections, and he's been very responsive to the needs that we've had and informative of, so he's done a very good job.
So you're asking whether we want to go 80/20 or whether we want to go to the fee schedule of attachment, that fee schedule, right?
Yeah, the question is, do we want to do this schedule at 80%, or do the 75% we currently have and have him compensate for the difference in an increase in what we're showing here.
Is an 80-20 easier?
It would be easier. And again, we would get about $6,000 in the fees, and we do have some expenses in covering this. You know, we log the inspections, we call them in to him, and get them scheduled that way. There is some paperwork. There would probably be about $1,500 difference in what we take in if we went to the 75 and he increased his fees. These fees, again, are not, I don't think, unreasonable at this, and going up, it might increase all of them, maybe another $5, $8 a piece. The simplest way to do it would be to take this proposal and accept, he gets 80% of the fees, the city keeps 20%. So when somebody gets an electrical permit, they come in, they pay the city the full fee, and then we give him that, and then he bills us now it's 75, he bills for 80%.
Sounds good to me. Sounds easier than this thing.
Well, the one thing I would bring up, in the write-up, it says, providing same-day inspections. When Brian Nelson was an inspector for the city, you could get an inspection the next day when you need it.
Yep.
Mr. Sloth currently only serves East Bethel Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Okay.
So that is a little bit of an inconvenient for contractors in their schedules. The job could be shut down for 2 days.
Well, it could be shut down Friday,
They just have to
Monday.
plan
Yeah.
better. Don't get Friday.
Now you know that it's Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yeah.
I think Brian was an exception.
Yeah,
I think he went above and beyond sometimes.
he did, and he didn't have as big a client base either. You know, I think he had a few other
Yeah,
cities, but
he worked with homeowners, he worked with me one time, so it was, I like that. I haven't met Andy, so.
I'm open to either way, whatever
Yep.
the city thinks is best, I think.
Any other thoughts?
I have no issues.
Okay, so this will come back to council then?
Yep.
Okay. All right, our last item, Canby Hills escrow.
as part of the developer's agreement for the Canby Hills project, the city required a letter of credit in the amount of $88,060.50 as security for landscaping and other non-building exterior improvements. Canby Hills was informed of their bank at that time that they would need to secure the letter of credit with cash. Canby Hills requested that the city accept a cash payment in lieu of the letter of credit. City Council accepted a check from the Hills Youth and Family Services in the amount of $88,060.50 as an escrow for the project on December 1st, 2018. Prior to the closure of this facility, this fund was reduced down to $28,845.38 to cover escrow payments for legal, engineering, and required landscape improvements. There's an outstanding balance owed to the city of $54,965.61 for unpaid legal, engineering, utility bills, and park dedication fees. The itemized outstanding balance owed the city is $8,365.61 for outstanding legal, engineering, utility, and Met Council SAC fees, a city SAC and WAC fee of $5,600, and a city park dedication fee of $41,000. This amount totals, again, $54,965.61. The sale price of the property to Canby Hills was $820,000, and the 5% condition requires the $41,000 payment for park dedication fees. The taxable market value of the property prior to the sale was $321,000. The current balance in the escrow account is now $28,845.35. The city was in the process of collecting these amounts when the state COVID mandates became effective on March 16, 2020. Due to the pandemic, licensing difficulties, and Minnesota Department of Health rate adjustments, Staffing challenges and restrictions on the patient census at Cambria Hills significantly reduced the cash flow required to keep the facility operational. The city recognized the financial difficulties suffered by Cambria Hills and worked with them to keep the facility open by delaying the payment of the park dedication fee, expeditiously approving the drawdown of the escrow funds for the required payments for landscaping work, and securing CARES grant money for their operation. In spite of these efforts, the facility closed on June 11th, 2021, and went into receivership on July 6, 2021. The city has been working with the receiver, Certus Financial, for the lease of the escrow funds remaining from the Cambria Hills agreement. The city's goal in this process is to assist in locating an operator for the facility identical or similar to the service provided by Cambria Hills without creating any additional obstacles to the sale or lease of this property. In its capacity as court-appointed receiver, Certus Financial notified the city on June 2nd, 2022, that they would support the release of the escrow balance of $28,845.38, subject to the forgiveness of any unpaid balances associated with this fund. Applying the $13,965.61, these are the costs for legal, engineering, and utility bills and fees, would leave a remainder of $14,879.77 in the escrow fund that could be applied to the park dedication fee. This would leave an unpaid balance of $26,120.63 for forgiveness consideration. The special assessment for the utility extension and 189th Street improvements constructed to serve the facility at 900 189th Avenue is separate and not included as any part of any escrow settlement. Staff requests City Council discuss the options of accepting the release of the escrow fund and consider forgiving the portion of the park dedication fees to reconcile this account.
Thoughts?
How much is the special assessment for the utility?
The special steps, the street improvements was $270-some thousand,
But
which
that goes to the new owner, doesn't it?
that goes with the land, and
Land.
those payments have been current.
Okay. I think I'm saying this is better than nothing, and if you assess the land before at $321,000, the park assessment fee is about right, as you state here. The chances of getting any more money from them, I just don't see it happening.
One of the things we've come about in their discussions, and they were here at the local Board of Assessment and Appeals, is anything that's outstanding in the balances that are going to be owed for this are presenting more difficulties in their marketing and getting the project open to another operator. This would be a smaller obstacle, but when you think about it too, this facility in and of itself as a use and a classification generates little or no demand on our park system. And I don't think we'd suffer a lot if we accepted the lesser balance. I agree with you. This would clean this up. This is the outstanding bills that haven't been paid, $8,365.61. There is one thing that I'll go over with on you here. It's the SAC audit charge. When the SAC determination was made for Cambria Hills and the plans were sent in to Met Council for their determination, Met Council assumed that the house on that property was connected to the sewer system. So they gave us one credit. So the SAC determination was 21, it was reduced to 20 because there was already a SAC that they thought had been paid there. Well, they do a SAC audit supposedly every year, but it had been about 3 or 4. So they did a SAC audit this past year. That's when they discovered that this house was on well and septic. So they called us and said, we hate to say this, but we made a mistake. This is what you owe us. So that's where the $31.85 comes from. The utility bill payment of $2,799.78 is the last month that Cambia was in operation and the period of time when they closed in June until Certus took that over on July the 6th. Certus has paid all the utility bills since then. So Certus said they weren't responsible for any bills incurred in that period prior to their appointment as a receiver. So that's the bulk of these, and there's some engineering stuff. The areas highlighted in the orange color are things that we were able to get Cambia to pay to keep the escrow current, so there's about another $5,000 there, and those were used to pay off legal and engineering funds. So really what's outstanding is that last item that's highlighted in yellow, $1,404.15. From there on down, comes up to the $83.65.61. So once those are paid off, and also we have in here, including the city payoff, there's $5,600 in sack and whack fees. That's money that's owed to ourselves, but I think if we're gonna collect and designate these funds, it's better to put that in the water and sewer portion than maybe in the parks at this time.
Jack, for these fees, the whack and sack, when are they normally collected?
They're collected at the time that the building permit's pulled.
So why weren't they collected this time?
They were collected. What it is the process is the owner submits the SAC determination request to Met Council. So it was submitted to Met Council. Met Council came back and said there's 21 SAC units, but they deducted one unit because they thought that the Butler home that was on the 40 acres was connected to the
Right.
water and sewer, so there was a credit for that. So when we got it, there it showed we collected for 20 SAC units. So they paid the city sack and whack fee of 20 SAC units at $5,600, the Met Council SAC fee at $3,185. When the Met Council did their SAC audit earlier this year, they came to the realization that this home was not on water and sewer, it was on well and septic. So that's when they sent us the notice that they had miscalculated the original SAC determination, and we owed them that credit that they gave back in 2018.
Okay. So they paid the original whack and sack?
That's correct.
So when are the park dedication fees usually paid?
Park dedication fees are usually paid at the issuance of the building permit, but in this case, we had several conversations with Jeff Brott, and they were asking if those could be postponed until later on, after the CO was issued.
And that's something that we normally do with others too?
I don't know that we've ever done it with others. It's something we've talked about, delaying some of these type of payments in order to work with the person coming in.
So did that go through council? I can't remember.
I think we had the discussion, but I would have to look it up and see just to verify that.
So you said those fees are paid when a building permit's pulled?
The sack and whack fees are.
No, the park dedication.
The park dedication are usually paid by the time the CO is issued.
Okay. So city decided to defer payment of the park dedication fees.
Because of the financial problems that Canby Hills was having getting opened, and even from the beginning, we were working on that getting paid. And it was actually discussed that they would use some of their CARES money to pay for this. That was part of the discussion on some of the expenses they could use, but the CARES money they got was, it was like $48,000. It was.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to remember what we did, but I know that we dedicated some of those funds to Canby Hills, right?
The CARES money?
Yeah.
Yes, $48,000 is what they got from their grant.
They got
So why would we do that if they owe us $41,000 then? I'm going on a basis, I don't remember us deferring to 41,000 before. Up until I saw this write-up, I didn't realize they never paid the park dedication fees, so my question is, maybe I'm asking all of us, then, if that's the case, why did we grant them money when they owed us almost as much money?
We didn't-
I'm not looking for an
Yeah,
answer
yeah.
to this question, why would we do that, so.
Am I misunderstanding? We didn't grant them money. They, Cambia got
No, we-
48,000
We
in-
designated some of our CARES funds.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
okay,
CARES
yeah.
money was designated to us, and we allocated about $200,000 for businesses and nonprofits. They submitted an application, we had it reviewed, and then that's what was approved for
They were
them.
one of the recipients,
Steve, I would have to look that up and see what,
okay.
to give you the precise answer on that.
So I have a lot of trouble deferring any of that, so.
'Cause I thought
It
they
was something
got,
that was agreed to at the beginning, and like me, I don't know why we didn't collect it, so.
I thought I remembered them getting 2 allotments from CARES money, because we had 2 times where CARES money came in, right? One was like 80,000 they got, and then the other was 30 or 40,000.
Yeah, there's some excess that came back, right? We had
Yeah.
to distribute some more too.
Yeah, I don't think they got any then, because I think that was after they closed.
Yeah, the second one was
Yeah.
after they closed. It was part
Yeah.
of the first one. I can't remember who else got it, but there was like 4 or 5
Yeah,
different businesses.
yeah,
that got it.
I think there were 4 that got it the second round.
Is there a deadline for Certus for this?
There's no deadline, but if we could get this resolved one way or the other, within the next 4 to 6 weeks would be probably beneficial to everybody. This is one question that they would have answered.
Is there any way we'll get any money out of them since they're closed? Any of the money that they owe us?
Well, there is $28,000 that we're holding, and that $28,000 would go to pay off
Right.
these outstanding things that haven't been paid yet.
So, on your, I guess it's the last page, states in the capacity as court-appointed receiver, I'm sorry, reading this wrong.
I spoke with Chris on this, and Chris said we needed to coordinate and get Certus's approval for the release of these funds before we did anything.
Okay.
So, and that statement, in talking with Certus, they wanted that statement put in there in its capacity as court-appointed receiver. They requested it be written up as that language.
Well, I can understand why they would support the release of the balance if we forgive them the rest of the balance.
And it's,
But what do we gain out of it? What does the city gain out of that? I'm missing something here.
to me, the city gains, I don't know that we'd ever be able to collect the balance from Certus. I don't know that they're obligated to pay it. What we would do, we would at least get a portion of the park dedication fees and these other things cleaned up that are still on the books.
Well, I guess maybe I'm missing something. I guess my point is, it seems like we've got more than strong enough claims for the entire remainder of the escrow balance, right?
We definitely have a claim for the remainder of the escrow balance,
Okay.
and maybe more if we want to challenge it.
So again, what's our incentive for forgiving the rest of it? Because we don't think they'll pay it, or we don't think we can collect it,
I think it's probably a little bit of both.
okay?
Well, and I think too, that them marketing it with, we can't be the only people that Cambia owes money to. With Certus trying to
They're
get
not
this
in
out.
bankruptcy. They're not,
No.
I mean, this is money,
No, it's-
these are bills they owe. and-
They owe from before bankruptcy, yes, I understand.
No, they're not in bankruptcy. They didn't go, they just closed. But regardless, I don't know what we gain by trying not to collect on that. There's no, I don't see the incentive.
Do we have a lien on the property for this amount? No, because
No.
we have partial escrow.
Well, we have partial escrow, but it is in the developer's agreement that they signed that they would pay the park dedication fees.
Yeah, it's an agreement.
there's a contractual agreement in there that says they would pay that.
But you have a contractual agreement with something that doesn't exist anymore.
And then that's what we would have to get some additional information to legally determine where we stood in trying to collect the whole amount.
And does Chris has an opinion on?
Chris hasn't done anything. He just said before we did any kind of request for release, we needed to contact Certus to see if they were in agreement or would be in agreement to the release of those funds to satisfy these other debts.
And Chris's opinion in terms of being able to collect the rest of the money?
He hasn't rendered an opinion on that. He'll be back in the office, I believe. He gets back today. I can contact him and see what he thinks on that.
Again, I'm having a hard time trying to see why we would forgive them for the rest of it.
Well, since I
I mean,
wasn't
there's,
on,
I read the justification for doing it on a city's basis. Still means we lost out. We should, to me, we should have collected that 41,000 long time ago.
or not given them the CARES money and applied it to that. Although I don't
No,
think
that
we
was-
could have, that was a separate entity.
That was still after the 41,000. We should have just collected the 41,000. Anyhow,
Well, it had to be a city council approval, didn't it?
I don't remember it, so.
I'll have to check. I thought that there was some discussion of it, but I can't recall exactly. So I'll do some research and find that out.
Any other discussion? All right, unless there's anything else,
Motion to adjourn?
second?
Second.
Motion made in second, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes, our meeting's adjourned. Thank you for attending.